The picture is not looking good at all, and we can't blame it on Greece because India is doing it to itself. We've got growth which is falling, a government which is bloating, inflation which is on the run, and a rupee which is falling. Does the government have a plan at all? The Aam Aadmi on the street all through the day today, India Inc. sending out SOSs to the government, asking the government to unleash a second stage of reform. None of that seems to be forthcoming for the time being. These were some of the pictures of stone pelting, buses being burnt. These images were seen all across the country. The question we're asking on the show this evening, how does this help? We've dealt with crises in the past, opposition on the road, there are fires being lit, buses being burnt. How does any of this help the India growth story? Is the government guilty of bringing the Indian economy to its knees? This on a day when growth has fallen even further, because when it came down, and we have some figures over here, from about 8% to 6.7%, the government said, don't worry, it'll stabilize around 7%. Now it turns out for the last quarter, growth is down to 5.3%. If there was ever an SOS, this has to be it. Joining us on the show on whether the government has a plan at all, Ashwini Kumar, Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs and Planning, is joining us from New Delhi. President of CII, Mr. Adi Godrej, is joining us from Ahmedabad. India Inc. sending out a warning signal to the government, but is the government listening? Mr. Sheshadri Chari, member of the National Executive of the BJP, is with us as well. I want to first go across to Mr. Ashwini Kumar. Mr. Kumar, growth is coming down to a decade-long low. We seem to be coming back to what was earlier derisively called the Hindu rate of growth. We've got a government which is bloating, getting fatter and fatter. We've got inflation which seems to be running out of control. A rupee which is not coming under your control. The people of India are worried sick, sir. Does the government have a plan to get India out of this mess?
Well, I certainly hope your comments are an introduction to the debate and not a conclusion. And on that assumption, let me tell you, the situation is not a happy one. We are certainly not happy that growth has come down, even though it is for a quarter at 5.3. We do expect the growth to increase, and over time we certainly hope that it would be around 7%. Now, you have asked a question, does the burning of buses and pelting of stones help? It certainly doesn't help. And I ask those who are criticizing the government, taking out buns, are they not citizens of this country? Do they not have a stake in the growth of this country? And does this form of protest augur well for our democracy and indeed also for our economy? As for the plan of the government, I want to make two statements. A, the finance minister has recently made certain policy statements. The need of the hour, in my view, is to restore investor confidence and to get away from the spirit of pessimism, the mood of pessimism. I know it is easier said than done. We are not entirely unaffected by the global economy. 22% of our GDP is accounted for by exports and services, which means that we are irretrievably integrated into the global economy. India is not blaming everything on Greece or Spain or Ireland or the Eurozone. Certainly not. We have our own act to get together. I'm not running away from that obligation, but we are doing what we can. For example, the finance minister has just announced that foreign institutional investors would be allowed to permit up to $1 billion in specified securities. He has just also announced that there will be no reopening of cases of income tax where these have been finalized. The idea is to announce all those issues about which there was misgiving so that we can restore investor confidence. We need to restore the mood of optimism in the country. We are not unaffected by global changes, but we have a game plan. You will see the series of next generation economic reforms slowly being calibrated. It is true that we have compulsions of a fractured polity. It is true that we are running a coalition government. We have difficulties, but
yes, we know your government has problems. Yes, we know that you're in a coalition government. Yes, we know that Greece is causing a migraine for the Indian economy as well, but the people of India are running out of patience. And we saw some of that anger on the streets. But I want to put that question. The minister correctly points out, let me play those pictures once again, Mr. Sheshadri Chari. Best buses being stoned in Mumbai, in Karnataka where you have a government, buses were set on fire, trains were stopped in Allahabad, in Odisha, in Jharkhand, roads were blocked in Delhi. office goers were inconvenienced. The Indian economy is facing a very serious crisis. How does any of this help, Mr. Seshadri?
See, the fact is, these things may not help. But the problem is, these are only indicative of the problems that are facing this country. If this government has not been able to control the economy, there is an absolute chaos. And this what we have in New Delhi is a sleepwalking government. It's in the sleep mode. So you expect the people to sit quiet about this. Whether the NDA calls a bandh or not, whether the communists call. See, today's bandh was jointly participated by the NDA, left and Samajwadi Party. Samajwadi Party is no friend of NDA.
No, but this vandalism, this hooliganism, we're seeing it on the screens. How is this a solution to the mess facing the Indian economy? Whether this is a solution
or not. Forget the solution about the NDA. Where is the solution from the government of India? Where is the solution from this finance ministry? What was the need for increasing 7 rupee 50 paise, and then now they are rolling back by 1 rupee 50 paise, whereas the petrol should not be costing more than 50 rupees. Where is the growth story for the last 9 years? Which bus was burnt in 2004? Which bus was burnt in 2009? Which bus was burnt in 2010? What is happening to this government? Where is the economy going? For everything you cite the increasing crude oil price, you cite the increase of petrol prices all over the world, you say Eurozone crisis, you say Greece crisis, and 1 year back here was the Prime Minister who was saying that because of our conservativeness we have been able to stand still and
let me bring in corporate India into this, Mr. Godrej. Do you think this government is guilty of trying to find fault outside the country? For everything you ask anybody in government, they blame Greece. Do you think to a great extent our problem is caused by the fact that our mandarins of the economy are not looking within? They're trying to find fault outside, and that's what's precipitated the current crisis, growth coming down to 5.3. This is what India and everybody watching this broadcast felt that we'd left in our past, that the economy, and the Prime Minister kept telling us, will now grow at 8%, 10%. We are down to 5.3. How concerned are you, Mr. Godrej?
Well, it's a matter of great concern that the GDP growth quarterly GDP growth in the last quarter of the last financial year has come down to the lowest level in about 9 years. We had mentioned to the government that it is extremely important to get the reform process going. Fiscal deficit has risen very considerably. The balance of trade, negative balance of trade has been very bad. Subsidies have risen, and it is extremely important that the reform process needs to be restored. It can be done. For example, the goods and services tax alone could add 2 percentage points to India's GDP growth rate. We need to have cooperation between the opposition and the government to ensure that necessary economic reforms are implemented at an early stage. It's no use blaming one or the other. It's no use having Bharat Bandhs to try and solve the problem. To my mind, we clearly need cooperation between the opposition and the government in getting the economic agenda ahead of individual political agenda.
You've hit the nail on the head, Mr. Godrej. You've set the tone for this debate by saying that these Bharat Bandhs are of no use, Mr. Seshadri. The opposition and the government need to get together, work together, help unleash the second generation of reforms which are not possible without you. You can keep asking the minister, what have you done? But unless you cooperate, none of those reforms are going through, sir.
Rahul, please tell me, from 2004 to 2012 till yesterday, has the government brought any single viable proposal on the table to discuss with the government, with the opposition?
They have. Goods and services tax, for example, the direct tax code. All of this committee was headed because of opposition.
That committee was headed by That committee was headed by the Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, who happens to be a BJP man, and that is one issue where we have taken it to the logical conclusion. It is the Congress governments which have opposed it. It is Jayalalitha who has opposed it. It is not none of the BJP government which has opposed it.
Because each time we ask anybody in the government, minister, about the Indian growth story getting derailed, we hear about Greece, we hear about coalition compulsions, we hear about how you are trying your best. But sir, take my word for the fact that the people of India are running out of patience. We've heard these excuses time and again. You've promised us the goods and services tax, the direct tax code. You've promised us FDI in retail, in civil aviation. None of this has come about. How long will the people of India wait, sir?
I can only say that the answer to your question is that someone must have sufficient numbers in Parliament to push through the legislation. I think the point that was raised by Mr. Godrej and the point that you picked on is the right point. On key national economic policy initiatives, there should be a bipartisan approach, and the support should be on a bipartisan basis. Indian democracy needs to be maturer, and Indian political parties and their leadership must know which is the Lakshman Rekha beyond which they would not indulge in partisan politics. The whole country, the people of India, the citizens of India are having to pay the price. Mr. Seshadri normally is a very soft-spoken person. I have great respect for him. But today, listening to his tone and tenor and his content of his argument, I can only say with Shakespeare that the vehemence of the argument is never a substitute for its cogency. Let me just remind my good friend that the discontent of the people of India on certain issues is not happened yesterday. But who gave the call for a Bandh? It was the opposition parties to score political brownie points, which has led to destruction of public property, which has led to violence. It has certainly not lifted the mood of the people of India or indeed of the country. It has not heightened the image of the country abroad. It has not given comfort to the corporates. For heaven's sake, there's a limit to what we can do through protests, but there's a lot that we can do through constructive cooperation. I do not dispute and deny to opposition parties their space of protest in public interest. Do so, but do so non-violently. Do so when the national imperatives demand. But don't be quick to jump to streets or take to streets when there are processes of parliamentary democracy available to say your piece and to redress the grievances or to make a political point. You have said the right thing, Rahul. Rahul, you have said the right thing by saying that there's a time for constructive engagement and cooperation. I would appeal to Mr. Seshadri and to his parties and to other opposition parties on key economic imperatives. Let us come together as a nation, and we know, we have been proud of the fact that when summoned to the flag, the nation has risen in unison. I hope we can have the same spirit again.
See, it is wonderful to sermonize on democracy. It is very wonderful to sermonize on restraint. And I don't expect Mr. Ashwini Kumar to come on the stage and accept the failures of the government of India or failure of this government, particularly the Prime Minister, who is touted as an economist. But the facts are facts. Forget the NDA, forget the protest that has taken place. These are not the protests that have taken place only today or yesterday. There have been protests all over for the last so many years, so many months. There are force only if there is a coercion, be it Mamata Banerjee or be it DMK. Day before yesterday, it was the DMK which announced to walk out of the coalition, and Mamata has always been very difficult with this government, although she is an ally of this government.
You know, I want to put
so the problem does not lie. The problem does not lie with the BJP. If the government is prepared to come out with an exact proposal, we are prepared to take the 10 steps towards this government on any of the economic issues that is facing the people of this country.
Because of the policy paralysis, because of these allegations of corruption, because of the reform process being stalled, is there a worry that we might head into a 1991-like scenario once again? We'll put that question to Mr. Godrej. We'll ask our political participants that question when we return on the other side of a very quick break. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.